Once upon a time, long, long, long ago, as I approached graduation from my bachelor's program at Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, I met a man who worked for the state of Illinois in the Health and Social Services Agency. After we became acquainted, he told me that with my worldview and values, I would make a good social worker. If I was interested, the state of Illinois would pay all expenses as I went through a 2-year master's in social work program. I would then owe the state 4 years of work in some agency and could get my clinical license at the same time. Having no clue as to what my worldview was, my response was, "Who in the heck wants to be a social worker?" Off I went, first as a clinical microbiologist, and then as a teacher of science and biology. During the next 18 years, I moved from Illinois to Florida to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State. At that time, there were too many science teachers in Washington, so I could not find a job in the field. I worked as a flagger on the roads until the rains came. I took a position as a file clerk in the Port Townsend office of the Washington Department of Social and Health Services, and I began to observe what work was being done there. Shortly, I became a caseworker. I worked foster care, adoption, adult protective services, and child protective services, where I specialized in dealing with victims of incest and their families. It was clear that my values really aligned with this type of work, but I needed more education. I was attending the Unity Church at that time and realized I needed to better articulate my values to myself and examine my worldview. I began classes at the University of Denver Graduate School of Social Work. 20 years after my bachelor's degree and saying no to a free education, I received my master's in social work degree at my expense. My internships were with an outpatient Veterans Administration drug treatment center, a domestic violence shelter, the Denver Area Labor Federation, and the Colorado State Employee Assistance Program. The EAP appealed to me as I was impressed that employers cared about the mental health and problems of employees. At graduation, the only such job available in Colorado was with the Pitkin County Mental Health Center in Aspen, on contract to the Aspen Ski Company. I took the job and moved to Basalt, as there was no way I could afford Aspen. The lifestyle there was truly la-la land. Movie stars and millionaires, and then the working folk. Echoes here in Durango. The working people mainly had gig jobs and lived with 2 or 3 roommates in tiny apartments or down valley. But they got free or reduced cost passes to ski and enjoy the ambiance of a location. Even with my full-time job, I couldn't afford to go to lunch in Aspen. The values of the place were bizarre. The child protection worker told me of a case where a family had been turned in because they had been accused of sending their child to school with a bag lunch and a peanut butter sandwich. Drinking and drugging were the recreations of choice, winter or summer. I rarely had any employees come to see me. Those I did see had issues with alcohol, drugs, depression, and ennui, feeling empty and isolated. After a year, I became discouraged with the situation and took another EAP therapist position. This was with the Aroostook County Mental Health Center in Madawaska, Maine. This is the northernmost town in Maine. It's their town motto. The town of 5,000 is Franco-American, and most were bilingual in French and English. Madawaska lies on the south side of the St. John River, which is the border with Canada. The town had been carved into two countries as a result of the Aroostook War, a weaponless war between France, which owned the territory, and the U.S., which wanted the territory. The river became the border. Families were split into two different countries. Nearly 100% of the population are Catholic and married. At the start of the 10 months of winter, many of the men took their wife's car and put it in storage for the winter. So much for women's lib. My job was on contract to Fraser Paper, an international company. The trees are logged and pulped in Canada, and the slurry is piped under the river to the mill on the U.S. side, where paper is made. It's the only industry in town, and 98% of the employees were men. The problems there were rampant: alcoholism, drug abuse, spouse abuse, seasonal affective disorder, child abuse. But being good Catholics, it was the priest who got their business. How many rosaries for beating your wife? After 3 winters, which is how I kept time in there, I took a job in Newport News, Virginia, as the internal EAP therapist for a large health system of hospitals, nursing homes, and wellness centers. I learned that the system intentionally short-staffed nurses and aides. Buying the latest technology was more important than retaining staff or treating them well. That health system sent me to an executive health administration program at the Medical College of Virginia. This was only the second online program in the country. I had to buy a computer, a modem, and a printer. Remember DOS? C-prompt? Lotus? I do. We had access to the mainframe at MCV weekdays from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m., and all weekend. What I learned in that program is that healthcare is all about finance, not caring for patients. Again, my worldview changed, and I had to examine my values. This time with the help of the UUFD, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Peninsula, a congregation of about 90 member families. I also there gained a wonderful spiritual experience that has set me on my way. I took a job with managed mental health care, which clarified to me even more that the healthcare industry is making money intentionally, not focused on the care of those in need. Deny care, squeeze the provider. That's the clear intention of this company. We parted ways, and I worked doing intake for an inpatient psychiatric hospital. Admission was mainly dependent on insurance, not need. If someone was having a psychotic episode and was brought in by the police, they were admitted. Otherwise, the individual had to manifest symptoms of a psychotic break. Eventually, I joined a private practice and worked mostly with the worried well, people who had everything but were not happy. They didn't have enough. They couldn't find happiness. This was not fulfilling. My worldview was now pretty cynical. By this time, my family had moved to Northern Virginia, so I found a job online in that area that I thought looked interesting. I was overqualified. They wanted someone with a bachelor's in business to manage contracts with the military, but I applied anyway. To my surprise, I was invited to interview. Every U.S. military base where families live on or near the base has a social service organization for the families. The company to which I applied provides staff and services through these entities. The company owner, Mike, a Navy veteran, always wanted to do the right thing, take care of those families, be open and honest, and fall on the side of generosity. Everything that he and his company stood for lined up with my values and my earlier worldview. I worked there for 12 years until I retired. Every job I filled helped me to clarify my values to myself and examine and expand my worldview. Had I said yes to a master's in social work as an undergraduate, would my life have been different? Probably. Who knows? Who cares? Because what is, and what ain't. Thank you.